Hey, it's Nolan here. In today's video, I'm going to be making a knife, but not just any knife. Let me explain. The type of knife I want to make today, I believe, is called a kiridashi. They are a traditional Japanese utility knife, and I'll explain more about them later, but first, let me talk about the steel. The steel I'm going to be using is an old ball bearing, which I believe is 52-100 steel, which has a super high carbon content, which will allow me to get an extremely hard edge, which will be great for this knife. This little piece I have here should hopefully give me more than enough steel than I need, because the last thing I want to do is have to restart because I don't have enough steel. With that being said, I can go ahead and stick it in the forge and get it up to forging temperature. The first thing I'll do is just forge everything flat. This part is so satisfying because everything just squishes down so easily. The hardest part about it is just trying to find the right place to hit. Now that I've got the piece mostly flat, I can go ahead and just start thinning it out. And that's not supposed to happen. Well, I guess I can test out this new hammer that I made. It was my first attempt at one, so it doesn't really look good, but I'm happy with it for my first. The main thing that stuck out to me when I was using it is it's super light, like barely under 2 pounds, so it felt like I was just whacking the steel with a toy. It didn't move the steel very fast at all, so I'll just keep it for more intricate steps, I guess. Since using this little hammer took so long, I decided just to go back up to my big 4-pound hammer to thin it out the rest of the way. The big hammer I was using to flat everything had a very round face, so it left all the sides kind of squished out pretty good. So I'm just going to use the light hammer again and flatten down the sides to give me a more uniform shape down the length of it. And once I finish that part, I can go ahead and forge in the tip. This part takes a minute to do because as you forge down the corner of the steel, it wants to mushroom out on the sides. So you kind of have to take it slow and just go back and forth and work all the sides till you've got the shape you want. After I got the tip to the profile I wanted, I can start to isolate the material I want for the handle. To do this, I just use the edge of my anvil and I angle the knife in a way that it creates a good divot into the steel, and then I can flip it around onto the spine and use the corner of my hammer to forge down the rest of the material. Now I can just keep repeating this process until I'm happy with the shape of the handle. The goal of this project is to make something completely with the hammer and anvil. Now you will see me use the grinder here in a bit, but that's only to make sure the bevel is nice and flat. I almost always use a ton of different power tools and other things to finish my knives, but this time I want to try and make a finished product using as little tools as possible. Like I said, the only big thing I used was the belt sander, and that being said, this is a super simple project, so you don't even need one to make one. And this is why I'd recommend it to any beginners who want to try and make a knife, because this is still a super functional knife, but it doesn't take a whole lot to make. Now that I've got the handle to the length I want, I'm going to use a hot cut and cut off all the extra material to just leave me with the stuff I need. Sadly, my camera overheated here, so I missed the actual part where it came off, so sorry about that, but now I can keep drawing down the handle and create the taper towards the end. This whole time that I've been forging this one, it's been in direct sunlight, so the steel is actually a lot hotter than it looks. You want to make sure you're forging your ball bearing steel pretty hot because this stuff can crack super easily on you if it gets too cold. I probably should have been a little more careful about this in this project, but I got lucky and nothing split on me too bad. I had a few small cold shuts start, but I used a rasp and got rid of them before they could cause any real issues. And this knife is actually going to serve a specific purpose when it's done. One of my closest friends has recently gotten into leatherworking, and he made me a beautiful wallet. So in return, I wanted to make him this knife for him to cut his leather and anything else he might need. I read that in feudal Japan, lots of craftsmen would use a kiridashi in making things such as saddles, and harnesses for horses, sandals, and even scabbards for swords and other blades. So hopefully it works good for him. The last thing I've got to do in this knife while it's still hot is straighten it out. And I don't want to ruin the impressions from the hammer, so to straighten it, I'm going to use a wood 2x4, and it works surprisingly well to get everything straight without messing up the surface finish. And then I just use a wire brush to clean up all the scale and call it a day. Alright, so this is what it's looking like right now. I got it fairly close to the profile that I wanted, and it's fairly straight. I put in some hammer texture along the handles, just to give it that like kind of rustic traditional look. Typically on a kiridashi, it only has a bevel on one side, also known as a single bevel knife. This helps to give you more control when cutting, and it can offer more precision. And if you're a right-handed person, the bevel will be on the left side, and vice versa if you're a left-handed person. This is an old one I made, and it's a good example of the bevel being on the left side. This one has a hollow grind, so it's a little bit different, but it's still the same principles. The next thing I'm going to do is get this ready for heat treat. So I want to grind this so that it's all perfectly flat, and once it's done, I can mark where I want the bevels and begin to grind the bevels in. Now it's all ready for the quench, so I can throw it back in the forge and start the normalization cycles. I did 3 cycles of this, heating it up to critical temperature the first time, letting it cool, then heating it back up again but slightly lower in temp this time, and then the same for the last cycle. And then I could go ahead and quench it. It came out of the quench perfectly straight, and now it's extremely hard. So hard that my files wouldn't even touch it, and it scratches glass super easily. Then I tempered it at 400 degrees for 2 hours, and now I can finish grinding it in the bevel. I didn't grind it to its final dimensions before the quench, just because I wanted to leave as much material there as possible so that the chance of warping it was less. But it all turned out good, so now I can just flatten the back and finish up the bevels, and then I can go ahead and start refining it on whetstones. What I'm going to be doing with the whetstones is basically just refining the edge geometry. I always start out flattening my stones just so they don't distort my knives in any way, and also so that I keep the stones in good condition. I start by laying the knife down flat on the stone, and then I tilt it up till the whole surface of the stone is in contact with the blade, and then I can start sharpening it with light pressure. I also make sure to do the back of the knife really well, because it's important that it's perfectly flat. You don't want it to be off slightly and then have your knife not cut straight. Sharpening one of these is very similar to a chisel. You just make sure the back is nice and flat, and you just follow the same angle that the bevel is already at. And here it is right off the 1000 grit stone. Just a quick sharpness test, and so far it's looking good. It cuts the paper pretty well, so I can move up to the 6000 grit stone to make the edge finer, and just repeat the exact same process. You can see here after the 6000 grit stone, it's starting to pick up a really nice mirror finish as the stone polishes it. And here's another sharpness test straight off the stone, and this one surprised me. I've never seen a knife cut a squiggly line this easy before. Now the very last stone I'll use is a 12,000 grit, and this one is really just to hone the edge and make it super fine. It also leaves it with a really nice mirror finish, and I'm going to give it a quick strop to remove the burr, and here are the final results of how sharp it is. Let me know what you think. Is this sharp enough?